Okay, here's all I want to say to you about choosing a good therapist. Choosing a good therapist should be a little bit like choosing a car. Now, what I mean by that is that it's quite often chosen on the feel. You know, if you go to a car showroom and somebody can stand in front of like some vehicle, and what they'll say to you is, well, here's this car, and it's got 75 horsepowers and it has 200 torques, and its wheels are this big, and it's got this system that does this and this system that does that, and it's been designed by German engineers within an inch of its life. And you look at it, what's the first thing you're going to ask? You're going to say, can I have a test drive, please? And if the test drive is absolutely crap and it just feels like you're driving a brick, the chances are that you're not going to choose it. Unless, of course, you are somebody who wants to drive a brick, which you might be if you're trying to keep your baby safe or something like that. But for most of us, what we look for when we drive a car is the feel, the way it handles, how it makes us like, and the feel doesn't need to be that it's going at 180 like down the motorway. The feel could be that it feels safe, it feels okay, and whatever it is that your values are. Now, what we do when we go and choose somebody for therapy is that quite often what people do is they choose it off the manual, and they make some mistakes, and there's two of them that I want to bring your attention to, and they're all to do with letters. They're to do with letters before and then letters after the name. So let's focus on the letters after the name first. The thing about letters after their name is that quite often they are a lot of bullshit, depending on what it is that you're speaking to. I'm not saying that doctors haven't got all these qualifications. That's great. But just because they've got all these qualifications does not mean that they can engage or have any connection with someone. If you've watched this whole video, for instance, that Anxiety and Me documentary with Nadia Hussain that we talked about earlier, that was one of the top CBT lecturers from some university in somewhere. He was meant to be academically one of the most experienced and understanding therapists in this country. Yet he had zero bedside manner. He had no idea how to make a connection, and in fact, when you watch the videos, all it looks like is two people sitting in a room together, rather than that thing that we talked about earlier where two people are doing something together to be able to help one of them get to a better place. It seems as if it's being done to her academically more than anything else. So for instance, I know somebody who has roughly about 30 letters after their name, and it looks massively impressive on a website, but actually many of them mean nothing. They are absolutely just there to hoodwink you into thinking that this person has a million qualifications, and they are qualified, but many of those letters don't talk about their qualifications. They talk about different membership groups that they have, and in fact one of them, which is something that I'm passionate about, says MPNLP, which is Master Practitioner of NLP, which, can I just say, any proper NLPer won't put after their name, if you ask me. But MPNLP, that person did that certificate over the course of 6 hours in one day. That course should be at the very least 10 days, if you ask me. And when I did mine, it was 14 days. And some people do 30-day Master Practitioner programs. It is an absolute joke. Now, the other letters are the ones that goes before the name, and it tends to be 2 letters, DR. Should you pay attention to anybody that's a doctor? Well, again, I bring you back to that television programme. And I bet that even medically, I know that I know that you, as you sit here, will have met a doctor at some point that you did not like. And maybe even a doctor that you walked away from thinking, I'm not exactly sure they really had a clue what I was talking about or whether they listened to me. Do not be fooled by the fact that someone is a doctor. They also, which was something I heard of from a friend of mine was happening down in England, was that there was somebody that was advertising themselves as a doctor, whatever, as a psychologist down there, which they were a CBTer. But they were advertising themselves as Dr. So-and-so, and their doctorate was in engineering. They're not lying. They were Dr. So-and-so, but their doctorate was nothing to do with what they were actually doing in terms of the psychology part of things, but it made them look impressive. Now, I'm sure they were very effective. I'm sure they were brilliant at what they do, but please do not be fooled. Many of these letters are just illusions. So, when you're choosing a psychologist or a psychotherapist or a counsellor or a therapist or an NLPer or a CBTer or whatever it is, what I would suggest is you find someone that speaks your language, somebody that you engage with, someone that you feel as if you click with in the same way that when you take your car out for a test drive, you just feel safe, you feel as if it gets you, you feel as if you're connected to it, and it feels like it could take you on some incredible journeys. I know. You've got to admit, though, you've got to let me away with that. I mean, I've been talking for half an hour now. You have to let me away with that little bit of cheese. Yeah? Come on. Take you on some incredible journeys. Anyway, so what I want you to do is go out there now in the realms of social media, check their YouTube channels, check their social media, speak to them on the phone before you've booked an appointment, get a feel for them. And if the feel is, I know that they can help me, then you go for it. Remember, you're never stuck. So if it's not feeling as if once you start, as if it fits you, if it's making you feel worse, if you're not feeling great after at least 2 sessions and you're not starting to feel better, you should be asking your therapist about what's going on. I hope you've